Well, let's analyse all the latest for you in today's perspective. Joining me now is former head of the French military mission to the UN, General Dominique Trinquand. Good to have you with us once again here on France 24 today. Missile and drone attacks overnight between Iran and Israel. We heard there from Catherine there have been new attacks on Beirut as well. From all these sides here, with all these different launches that have been going on, there seem to be, to a certain extent, fewer and fewer launches, particularly from Iran into Israel every night. I mean, how long can this go on at this current rate, would you estimate?
Interesting. Sadly to say that, but it's a logistic battle. How many drones I've got, how many missiles I've got, how many anti-aircraft munition you have. It's exactly the point where we are. And probably, of course, the American and the Israeli know how much they've got, but we really don't know about Iran. What we are sure about is that Israelis and Americans are striking launcher for the missiles. So how many missiles doesn't count if you don't have launcher. That's the first bit. Second bit is drones. And they've got probably a lot of drones. That's why it's interesting to see that Mr. Zelensky proposed to send anti-drones to the Gulf, because he's very powerful in that matter, and receive anti-missiles for Ukraine. So we see that this is the core of the battle currently, logistic, how many weapon systems I've got.
And what about the command structures as well? I mean, the US has obviously been hitting notably Iranian command structures. I mean, as that is weakened, presumably as well, that makes it harder and harder for Iran to respond?
Not really, because Iran has reorganized his system. He knew that he will be attacked. He reorganized the system as a mosaic, meaning that there is no straight command structure, but possibility for everyone to fight when they want, as long as they want. And so probably it will be difficult, even if the strike on the command structure are very important in political terms. In tactical terms, I think the Iranian can survive that.
Sounds quite alarming to a certain extent, what you're saying. I mean, we heard initially, didn't we, Donald Trump said this might be over in 4 weeks. Benjamin Netanyahu backed him up with that figure. Then it became 6 weeks. Yesterday, Pete Hegseth, the US Defense Secretary, used the figure of 8 weeks. Could it just become open-ended, as you say, even though a lot of Iran's capabilities have been taken out? Presumably they will still always have some drones left that they could fire.
The problem is the objective of the operation. And I don't think that it's the same on the US side and on the Israeli side. On the Israeli side, clearly, change of power, change of government, rid of the Mullah regime. Initially, the US were on the same line, but currently they are puzzling. They don't know exactly. And why? Probably because they know that the Iranian will not change their point of view. And if there is no internal movement, meaning the population or an opposition, there will be no change in the power of Iran. That's why we are more and more talking about Kurdish, for example, forces going into Iran, Kurdish Iranian, but also Iraqi, because there is a need to do something inside. As you remember, Mr. Netanyahu and Mr. Trump say to the Iranian people, keep quiet, stay at home, and after the strikes, you will go out in the street. But probably they don't know if they will go out of the street after the terrible massacre beginning of January. So that's why probably there is a wondering about the US, what will be the end. And the Israeli and US not being on the same line.
So really, to get rid of the regime, you would say it has to be boots on the ground. I had a guest earlier on who was representing Iranian students, said people are not going to go out on the streets again. If they do, they will get shot to a certain extent. So the only other way to do that is to put boots on the ground, which presumably the US has ruled out there.
Yes, of course, the US will not put boots on the ground. And anyway, to prepare a real invasion like it was in 2003. It took 6 months, I think, to build up this force. But that doesn't mean that there are not people on the ground. Special forces from Israeli, especially air special forces, are already there. Perhaps CIA is already somewhere, perhaps with the Kurdish. So there will be small involvement on the ground, but the real involvement must come from Iranian, either from Balochistan or from Kurdistan, or from the people in the city. And we don't know exactly what will happen. People are quiet, as they were asked to be. We'll see perhaps after the end of the strike, and the strike, as Mr. Trump said, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, we don't know.
So from your experience, I mean, do you think all of those three combined efforts, I suppose, well, four if you count potentially the US, but Israel, the Kurds and the Iranian people, could that be enough, do you think, to topple the regime?
Difficult to say.
Impossible
Difficult to
to
say. You know, the power in Iran is a religious one. They think that martyrism is a possibility. So they will fight until the end. The other possibility is to buy people in the Revolutionary Guards, probably. You've got people who are not ideological there. They just want to make money. So if you just tell them, okay, fine, you will continue to make money, and that will be a different change, a bit like in Venezuela, where you're buying people and then they take the power. It doesn't change really the power. It's a bit softer, but then you succeed in throwing out all the mullah.
I wanted to ask you about this, the hitting of this frigate, the Iranian frigate yesterday, thousands and thousands of miles away from Iran, of course. I mean, did that surprise you that the Americans decided to do that?
A bit surprised, but at the end, it's logical. You are fighting the Iranian, you are striking all military means of the Iranian. This frigate was very far away from a theater of operation, but anyway, it was a powerful tool. And so don't just wait for them to attack something, just strike them. Of course, it was a major point because it's the first time that a submarine, US submarine since the Second World War, was striking a warship like it was. Probably more than 100 people are killed, but that's war. And we can understand the possibility of striking, not waiting to be struck.
And do you think the hitting of that frigate does widen options for the Iranians? We've had warnings from the Iranian foreign minister just this morning saying it opens the Pandora's box, if you like. It means that we can now do other things that we might want to do. Does it not make other things targets because of it?
They are vocal. It's normal, they are vocals. Anyway, we need to be careful about the way the Iranians were striking before through terrorist attack in Europe, in Lebanon, elsewhere. And we know that this is a possibility since the start of this operation. So we need to be careful. In our city, for example, in France, measures are taken. And I think it is wise to do like that.
And talking about the widening of the conflict, I mean, those Gulf countries, of course, that have been dragged into this over the last few days. I mean, how more prepared can they become now, and how do you think their attitude towards the Iranian regime might change?
I think it was a big mistake from the Iranian regime to strike this country. Initially, this country were opposing the American operation and were trying to change the mind of Mr. Trump. Anyway, when they were struck by Iran, they changed completely, and they say now it's Iran which is attacking us. So I think it's what I call the boomerang effect. And now currently, Iran is very isolated. No country are supporting Iran. Russia can't do anything. Only China is looking at that because Iran is very important for China, for oil, of course, but also because the Silk Road, you know, it's going through Iran and it's a major hub for China. And China is spying, is looking. They just put a satellite picture of all the American bases on the market, and those that provide targets for the Iranian. And they are looking at what US is doing. if there is a long war, 6 weeks war, then US will spoil lots of ammunition, which will not be available for the other theater, which is Taiwan. And as you know, Mr. Xi is now more powerful and probably more dangerous. And in 10 days, there is a meeting between Trump and Xi. We'll see if there is a deal between the two leaders.
Good to have you with us on the programme today. Thanks very much for coming in and talking to us. Former head of the French military mission to the UN, General Dominique Trinquand. Thanks very much, as ever, for talking to us here on France 24.